Vernon, can you talk about the Lakota form of culpability, blame, responsibility for something that goes wrong?
Well, I think it's not just the Lakota responsibility. It's the responsibility of the man that's sitting at the door pouring the water.
That's what I'm talking about. Who is responsible to oversee these things, and what do you feel about the man who is in charge of this one?
The man that puts the lodge together, the man that sits at the door, the man who has control over the water, how much water is poured on the rocks, how many rocks are brought into the lodge, whether people can come and go. The man at the door has the control of everybody. He has the responsibility for everybody in that lodge, physical and spiritual well-being.
A lot of the facts have been vague as to what happened. What, from your observation, what do you see that might have happened that caused it?
Well, thank you for asking that, because everybody is out looking for these answers, and they're looking all around us, but we may have those answers. First of all, a lodge is constructed with a certain type of tree, and I'm not going to disclose that tree. It is covered with either a hide that has pores that breathe, or it's covered with a canvas that has pores that is breathed. It is unthinkable to cover a lodge with a plastic tarp that would not allow any kind of ventilation or air.
Do you think that was the main issue, was the ventilation?
I'm not going to speculate on what has happened, because it's still under investigation, and I do not want to infringe on that. But as we have spoken throughout Indian country, there's a majority of possibilities. Could be what they use to pour on the rocks as an incense or as a fragrance. It could be used the kind of stones that were used. It could be chemicals on the stones, chemicals on the wood, chemicals on the plastic tarps. It could be any of a number of things. And very important, it could very well have been some of the health issues of some of the people. We do not go into a lodge without knowing the conditions of the people, whether or not they can abstain the heat, the closed in of the lodge itself. So there's many things to be considered. And I personally believe, this is my personal opinion, that three things happened. The people were starved, they were gorged, and they were put in a hot lodge. What took place in the lodge, nobody knows. That's under investigation. But we as Native people would never consider doing those things in such a rapid moment. We still have ceremonies in which we fast for 4 days and 4 nights, no food and water. But after that fast, we wean ourselves. The other thing to take in consideration is the fact that if people are emanating our ceremonies that was done 200 years ago, there's been a change in the environment. There's been a change in the human being. And so as Native people, we take in consideration of the fact that the weather, the ozone layer 200 years ago was fully intact. The disease that people are walking around with today, we didn't have. We didn't have diabetes. We didn't have some of those diseases because we had a healthy diet. We had a healthy lifestyle that contributed to our ceremonies. And this is something very, very important. That if you're going to emanate the ceremonies, we are going to expose you as frauds.
Has the Sheriff's Office asked some consultation from you in their investigation?
I have emailed the press statement, the press release to the sheriff in charge of the investigation. I have not heard from him. I have placed calls into him, and yet we're waiting to hear from him. Perhaps he's busy in the investigation, but I think it's important that he contacts the Native American community that maybe could help him in his investigation.
What would you like to say through this press conference to the sheriff?